race fans, my name is Taylor and welcome back to Above the Yellow Line, the show where we talk all about the NASCAR Cup Series. This episode, we will briefly discuss the rain-delayed YellaWood 500 at Talladega and how that shook up the points and especially the point standings for the Above the Yellow Line crew, because I'll tell you, I did not do well. But after that, we'll dive into some updates and hot takes. And finally, we will end by previewing the Bank of America ROVAL 400 at Charlotte's Road Course, the ROVAL. So we're very excited for that. Also very excited to have a guest on the show. Joining us for a second time on Above the Yellow Line is Rob Tiongson from the Podium Finish. Welcome back, Rob. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well, Taylor. It's good to be back.
Yeah, good to have you back. Now, tell us, what have you been doing since we last saw you on the show? It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. And ironically, that was for the Charlotte race weekend as well. So I seem to be the Charlotte guy for ATYL. But other than being busy with the Podium Finish, as you know, I've been going to grad school. So I've been studying digital journalism. And I'm one of the very first students that's studying that at St. Bonaventure University. So I'm really excited to add on to the Dr. Jandeli School of Communications rich history. Aside from grad school, just grinding it out, just doing the best I can. And like I said beforehand, I am getting ready for my trip to Charlotte Motor Speedway in Concord, North Carolina. So going to be great.
You're going to have a fun weekend. There's a lot of fun stuff, I think, planned at the track, too, that you'll have to talk to us about a little bit if you know anything. But are you ready to start the recap?
Let's go.
All right. So, everyone, grab your Happy Meals and your Dr. Pepper. Bubba Wallace got his first Cup Series win in a rain-delayed and then rain-shortened race, finishing on Monday. Wallace, for me personally, I think he truly deserved this win. He is so good at these super speedway races. He was able to stay in the front and get in the front of the pack when it mattered. This is a win of first for the 2311 team, first for Bubba Wallace. He is also the second African-American driver to win a race since Wendell Scott. So that was amazing for the sport, a history moment. And he also breaks the McDonald's curse, Rob. How excited were you to finally just now have that out there? The McDonald's curse is gone.
Made for a good birthday present, but this is not, of course, endorsed by McDonald's. But to think it's been 27 years since the McDonald's car last won with Jimmy Spencer, ironically, at Talladega SuperSpeedway, I think it's kind of fitting that, history was made not only with that sponsor finally winning a race at that very fabled racetrack, but like you mentioned earlier, Bubba Wallace winning his first Cup race. I think it's pretty awesome to know that, things can happen for a reason. When you think about the stress that he went through in June of 2020 to where he is today as the latest Cup winner with the newest team that you and I probably never thought would be conceived back in June of 2020. So it's crazy. It's awesome. And I'm here for this history.
And as you all remember, last year at this time, there was a lot of things happening in the United States. We had the Black Lives Matter movement really kicking off, especially in NASCAR. And last year at this time, everyone stood with Bubba Wallace as they walked the grid. And that was a pretty powerful moment in our sport. And to have him win 1 year later after that, and also win at his home track, was pretty significant. And it was really great to see. I mean, as we were all waiting, as they were trying to call the race or trying to drive the track, I was on the edge of my seat. I was a little nervous, but of course, it is a 2.66 mile track. There's no way they were going to drive that track in time. So we are very happy for Bubba Wallace. Congratulations to that whole team. And I think we kind of touched on this, Rob, but what does this win mean for the team? And what does this mean for the sport as a whole?
Well, to me, what it means is that the diversity movement is very real and it does work. Bubba Wallace mentioned it himself when I interviewed him during the post-race Zoom availabilities. And I basically asked him, how important was this victory for the diversity program? Because when I think of that program, he was one of the very first faces of it, I think back in 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
And basically, to paraphrase what he said, he was like, if it wasn't for Drive for Diversity and Rev Racing, he would not have had the opportunity to be in the major NASCAR, series. So it's great to see. I mean, we've been waiting for this to happen for a long time. And I think just, thinking for the African-American community, just how uplifting it is and how inspiring it is to see someone like Bubba Wallace capture the checkered flag. I mean, it's just, you can't put it into words how awesome it is for the sport. We needed something like this to happen. And, with this being dubbed the best season in NASCAR by Fox earlier this year, I think this victory just adds on to it.
Yeah, I would say, not to derail a little bit, but the best season yet was a very hefty title to give this season. And I think the next season is going to be the season of mystery, as we don't know with the next gen car. But I would say, piggybacking off of what you said, Rob, is that this win is monumental for the sport, for diversity, for minorities. Anyone who is finally getting into the sport or feels like they have a driver they can root for and feels like they are accepted into the sport, it was such a big moment for them. For the team too. I mean, this team has been kind of, they've been gaining momentum slowly and slowly. They've been doing better and better every week. And I think they needed this win to hold on to something to kind of propel them into next season and propel them for the rest of the year, because we know that Bubba Wallace has talent. We know that team has a lot of backing. Denny Hamlin as a part team owner with Michael Jordan. They have talent. They will have Kurt Busch next season, which will add and amplify that team to another level. But it's so good to have them have a win this season. And I don't think that's something any of us predicted. It's what Michael Jordan would have loved to say. And Denny Hamlin kind of pumped the brakes and was like, whoa, no, let's take it one step at a time here. But they got the win, which is really impressive. So again, congrats to the 2311 team. And for the rest of your results here, obviously Bubba Wallace in first. Then we have Keselowski, Logano, Kurt Busch, Christopher Bell, Chris Buescher, Hamlin, Harvick, Jones, and Alfredo to round out your top 10. There's a lot of winners and losers in this race, I would say, and we'll get to that when we talk about the driver points. But now let's look at the above the yellow line crew points. As I said, guys, I have no chance at winning our title this year. At this point, statistically, I think it's impossible. I did based on numbers. I went off of gut feelings. I went based off of, here's the numbers. I'm going to do the complete opposite. It didn't work. It really didn't. I am in dead last with 18 points. And then Adam is right next to me with 23 points, doing significantly better. Second place is Zach. And then winning this whole thing, Dom has made a comeback with 32 points in our standings right now. Obviously, there's still a lot of racing to go left in the season, if I can say that. Not a whole lot, though, but it's going to be a close battle to see who wins this title. But now on to the driver points. Here's where things get interesting, and also some things stayed the same. If we look back at last week's race at Las Vegas, you'll see that Byron, Harvick, Bowman, and Bell were below the cutoff line. Things are a little different now in terms of how far those drivers are below the cutoff line, because they're all still there. It's just that Harvick is now -9, Bell is -28, Byron and Bowman, Byron -44 and Bowman -52, must-win situations for those two drivers. So I'm going to bring it back to you, Rob. Question here. We know that one Hendrick Motorsports guy below the line has the potential of making it above the line at this point, as they are in must-win situations. Between Byron and Bowman, who would you say has the best chance of getting a win at the ROVAL to propel themselves into the next round?
Of these two drivers who both had equally great seasons, I still say my gut feeling goes with William Byron, just because he's a pretty solid road course racer compared to Alex Bowman. When I think of the road course results this year, I often have seen the 24 car run at the front of the field. Now, he hasn't gotten the finishes he deserves at the road courses, but he's not afraid to play the strategy game and get those stage points, or sometimes sacrifice positions at the end of the stages so that he's at the front or near the front by stage 3. So, I mean, just going off of pure gut feeling, I still have to say William Byron does it. It's a really tall ask and task for him to do with Rudy Fugle, but I think with a little bit of track position strategy in mind, they can do it.
I think I would have to agree with you. The best bet here for Hendrick Motorsports to get 3 cars into the next round would be William Byron for me. Alex Bowman, though he has shown great success this season with 3 wins, he's not as consistent in road courses. He tends to get kind of unlucky with, or he's not up to par or at the same level as the other 3 drivers in his team. So with that being said, I think Byron does have the best chance. But looking around the cutoff line, here are the positives and negatives I see. So Bell below the line, a great road course racer. I see him having the potential to propel himself above the line. The downside for him, though, is that he has to fight for a spot with Chase Elliott. He has Martin Truex Jr., you got Kyle Busch, and obviously a point to talk about. If you look at this picture here, you see that Kyle Busch and Chase Elliott are only above the line by 9 points. that's wiggle room there. There's really no air to mess up. And you have Ryan Blaney even above just by 15 points. The battle is pretty tight. And so, Rob, do you see any of these drivers faltering, or could we see a shock this weekend at the ROVAL?
You know, that's funny you mentioned that, because that's one of the questions I'm asking the team, or I did ask the team before I changed it to the Bubba Wallace question. Yeah, honestly, I do see a bit of a shocker that on Sunday. It's safe to say that Chase Elliott would be the favorite in mind, but you also have to consider the unexpected happening on Sunday. Hendrick Motorsports is obviously not infallible. I mean, Kyle Larson's in a precarious position himself, just being about 22 points above the cut line. Think about that with the playoff points he had, the big advantage he had in the round of 16, and now he is limping his way into the finale of the round of 12. I mean, one little crash, one little spin in turn one in that heartbreak quarter, and it's all over. So, I mean, nobody is out of the woods.
The only person safe is Denny Hamlin winning in this round. But yeah, I had a prediction before the playoffs that Kyle Larson would not make it into the championship four. Of course, in my brackets, I put him there anyways because my predictions are often wrong. But we've seen bad things happen to playoff drivers at the worst possible moment. And seeing that Kyle Larson has slipped in points, and now he's only 22 to the good, and right behind him is Joey Logano, 21 to the good. And even last race, I believe he was tied, or no, he was +6 above the line, and now he's +20, 21. My numbers. So things changed a lot after Talladega, and some upsets. The one I don't want to see, because he is my championship pick, Chase Elliott has struggled a little bit these past few weeks, and he hasn't been as consistent. But if we're looking for a major upset, which I really hope we're not, that would be one at a track that he has won twice at. It would be a major letdown to the fans. I just don't want to see it happen. I also do not want to see Ryan Blaney or Kyle Busch, I think, falter in this race, because I do think that Ryan Blaney would be a really good championship four driver. I think he'd be a dark horse pick in that aspect. But there is a lot that could happen this weekend. We're not going to know until the flag drops and we go racing. So those are our surprises for this weekend. That's what we're thinking. But we got to go back to last weekend. We got to rate this race above or below the yellow line. So here's how this works. We do this on a scale of 0 to 100. 50 is the midpoint. If it's a 50% race, it's kind of like, it was all right. I did not really think anything of it. Below that, it was a bad race. We want it to be above that yellow line. We want it to be a good race. So, Rob, taking into consideration all the chaos that happened this weekend with the rain and everything, what would you rate the race at Talladega and why?
Not to brag about my birth year, but I gave it an 85 because the historical impact of Bubba Wallace's victory at Talladega, that enough for me boost this race by a ton. Now, I have a bit of a different perspective with super speedway racing than maybe you do, but as an older fan, I get very nervous watching these super speedway races. So I could have done without the wrecks, but I get it because it's playoff time. So I mean, a lot of these drivers are going to definitely give it their best effort. And that sometimes means being a little bit more aggressive than you need to with those bump drafts that go wrong, or being in a situation that you're not usually in. Like Kyle Larson is not the kind of super speedway racer who often runs mid-pack or to the front early on. He likes to wait it out until stage 3. So that when I found out he wrecked like not even like 50 laps into the race was a huge implication for sure. But I mean, I love the race in terms of the suspense. I mean, anybody could have won it that would have been really worthy of it. I mean, Harvick hasn't won a race all year, and he was leading at one point. So I was like, oh, maybe the 4 car will win. And then, you know, the Penske boys looked really strong for a while. But then once I saw Bubba Wallace hanging out in the front and just, you know, contending amongst the Penske boys, I was convinced that if he could win like be up there, he would probably win the race because he had a good fast car, but he also, you know, was a pretty good beneficiary rather of the inclement weather. I know folks are going to say, well, it doesn't count. It's not a real win, but it is a real win. I mean, Jeff Gordon, I think, has like 5 or 6 range shortened victories. So do you mean to tell me that he does none of those wins count? I mean, it's a legitimate win. So it was a great race for sure.
Not to mention, too, earlier this season with Oh, what road course was it? Chase Elliott won. Was it Coda, I believe?
Yeah, it was
That
Coda.
yeah, and it was rain shortened, and Chase Elliott won, and there is this huge debate whether people are favoring Chase Elliott because he is NASCAR's golden child, and words straight off of Twitter. It's rain, and it was so dangerous to the point where they had to call the race at that point. Yes, the timing worked out just right for Chase Elliott as he was about to run out of gas. However, that's how it works. I don't think a rain shortened race discounts a winner. Sometimes, maybe, but when a driver is able to get to the front of the field and dominate and is up in the front of the field for the majority of the day or for a lot of the race, it counts in my book. So, absolutely agree with you, Rob. Though my rating is a little different. I give it an 80%, and this was hard, like I said, simply because of the rain delays, and it made the race in action pretty choppy. But what I did like is what you mentioned was I was kind of on the edge of my seat. I was very nervous, kind of anticipating what was going to happen next, because they even mentioned it. The drivers talked about it when they got out of their cars for the first rain delay ish on Monday, was that as soon as the crew chiefs went over the radio and were like, guys, rain's in the area, the intensity just picked up. And we felt this at home, and all of us, if you were on Twitter during the race and I was watching in between classes, were like, are you as nervous as I am? So it was pretty intense. It was a very intense race, and I think all things considered, I would give it an 80%. So now it is time for some updates and hot takes from the world of NASCAR and beyond, and we've got two things to discuss today. First off, something really exciting and something really cool I love to talk about here is drivers doing things for a good cause. And we're discussing Corey LaJoie's inaugural charity Kickball Classic event happening this week, actually, as we are recording right now, this Wednesday. And it's going to raise money that will go to the Canopolis YMCA and the Samaritan's Feet, which is a group that helps those in need obtain shoes and socks around the globe, which is awesome. And LaJoie's sponsor, Built Bar, is actually going to be the primary sponsor of this event, helping put it all together. We also have a lot of special guests. I'll read off the list. I'll also have it on the screen for you all, but we got drivers like Austin Dillon, Kyle Busch, Kurt Busch, Ryan Blaney, Ty Gibbs, Matt DiBenedetto, Joey Logano. You can see the whole list there. There is a great lineup of celebrity stars as well. We have even Bob Pockrass, I think, is joining in the action, which I think is hilarious and also wonderful. We all love Bob Pockrass in the journalism and NASCAR community. But Rob, how cool is this? And is there someone you expect to win? I know teams, we don't know the teams yet as we're recording this, but how do you see these drivers doing with kickball?
I think they're going to have a good old time. I mean, I was thinking back to when I was a kid and when they used to have the softball little tournament during this time of the year. So I think it's cool to see a bit of a tradition come back. And I think one of my best friends in the industry is in that game, Brianna O'Leary. So we were texting back and forth before this recording about the game, and I was like, "Who are you with?" And she's like, "I'm with the Team Trackhouse team." So I was like,
Ooh.
"Oh, cool." So I said, maybe Pitbull's music is going to be playing when you get introduced out there. But the thing she was saying is like, I hope it doesn't rain. I was like, I know. So it's really cool. And seeing Pocky out there, it makes me go, if one of these days I live in Charlotte, I would do things like that just to get to know these drivers and know that I can build upon their trust, not just as a journalist, but someone who can have fun with them too. So I think it's a great cause, and I love when they do things like this.
I wish I was there to watch. I know you're going to be traveling tomorrow, and I was like, man, I wish you were there to watch this event because it just seems so cool. And we talked about this last show too, I think, when I was talking with Adam, just seeing drivers do things for a good cause and getting really involved with their fans and other organizations. So that was really cool to hear about, and I'm excited to kind of probably watch a little bit of it if it's still going on after we record this, because I know it's going to be live streamed on social media. So I'll have an update hopefully for you guys next podcast about how that went, or even just if you follow on Twitter, I'll probably post about it. But some really cool stuff, really awesome guests. And of course, with the second piece of news, as there is an up, there is always a down. And I hate to end on a downer. I really planned it awfully this way, but here it is, Wednesday afternoon as we are recording. It was announced that Michael Annett will retire after the season with Junior Motorsports. Annett has been dealing with a leg injury that has kept him on and off the track this season. And as the news came out that Sam Mayer and Josh Berry were joining the team full time, and then we had Gragson and Allgaier signed back on for another season, and then the possibility of Junior Motorsports fielding a fifth car, it just seemed less and less likely. But still, I was pretty shocked. Rob, were you shocked by this news? Did it throw you off?
Not really particularly, just because that nagging injury had been, allowing him to race these past several races. And not that he's an older driver by any stretch of the imagination, but you have to look from a performance standpoint. Josh Berry pretty much made Junior Motorsports realize, hey, you know what? This guy who only raced late models and had like a cup of coffee in the Xfinity Series can get results. So, I mean, it's a shame because Michael Annett did bring value to the Xfinity Series. He's a good super speedway racer, a reliable top 10 driver, and of course, delivered one of the most memorable feuds with Mike Harmon at the Applebee's
Yes.
incident. So it's a shame. I mean, I never like to see drivers walk away, but especially when their body is the reason why they can't continue. But, I think you and I and the whole ATYL, TPF crews, we all wish Michael the best with his future endeavors and hope that he's not a stranger with the racetrack.
Absolutely. I hope he continues to race or in some way, shape, or form because he is a very good racer. We see it in the stats. And the negative I see with this too is not to detract from, Michael Annett leaving the team and retiring, but he also leaves a lot of sponsorship off the table for Junior Motorsports. And that concerns me just a little bit. And I don't think they're going to field a fifth car. That's still left to be determined, but I'm not sure. But I'm really sad to see Michael Annett go after watching him the past few seasons, really trying to focus in on the Junior Motorsports team. I've really grown to really like him as a driver, love his sponsors, his paint schemes too, not to mention. So it's going to be sad to see him go, but we'll have to see what Junior Motorsports does. Rob, do you see them fielding a fifth car potentially?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Dale Jr. is going to do those all-star races, or that one all-star race idea that he does because of the Hellman's Unilever sponsorship. So at some point, I would say probably midway into the year, you're going to probably see him in one of those one-off entries with JRM. And then you have to also think too that with the next gen car being out next year, that some of the Hendrick boys may get some starts as well. As long as they bring sponsorship, that's easier for me to say.
Yes.
But I really think that the fifth entry will happen. It's going to be dependent on sponsorship, of course. Money is the name of the game, of course, within motorsports. But I would say, yeah, the fifth entry will happen. Well, how many starts? It's hard to say at this point.
All right, so that is your updates and hot takes. Let us know below if you see Junior Motorsports running a fifth car, what you think of all this news. But now it is time to preview the Bank of America ROVAL 400, starting with your track facts.
The track length is 2.28 miles long. The race length is 400 miles or 109 laps. There are 17 turns at this track, something important to note as you see these drivers turning left and right this weekend. Stages 1 and 2 are both 25 laps each, and then the final stage of this race is 59 laps. Now it is time to line up the field for this weekend's events, and you'll notice a trend here. We got Joe Gibbs Racing and Team Penske filling up the top 3 rows. On the pole for this weekend is Denny Hamlin. Right next to him is Brad Keselowski. Then we have Logano, Bell, Truex Jr., Ryan Blaney, Harvick, Elliott, Kyle Busch, and Kyle Larson rounding out your top 10. Notably, in the playoffs still, we have William Byron and Alex Bowman in 11th and 12th. And finally, to close out this segment, we have to do driver stats, lining up the odds for this weekend. The last drivers to win at this track was Elliott last October, and the active driver with the most wins at the track, no surprise, is also Chase Elliott. We've gone to this track 3 times. He has 2 wins, and Ryan Blaney has been the other winner at the track in one of the most memorable races, in my opinion. Then the active driver with the best average finish at the track is again Chase Elliott with a 2.67 average finishing position. The team with the most wins is Hendrick with 2, Penske with 1, and finally the manufacturer with the most wins, no surprise again, is Chevrolet with 2 wins at the Charlotte Roval.
So those were your track facts, driver stats, and the lineup for this race. Now let's go to our race winning picks. As always, we start with our garage picks, which are maybe a dark horse pick, someone you weren't quite willing to put as your race winning pick, maybe because you had one that was a little bit better, maybe someone you're like probably won't win, but let's just see. But Rob, who did you choose as your garage pick and why?
I went with this year's Indianapolis Cup race winner, AJ Allmendinger. And the reason why I say that is because, he really proved himself as a Cup driver once again, even though it's a one-off trophy hunting car. when he did that, the deed at Indianapolis in August, I was just like, that was huge for that team that declared a full-time entry for next season in Cup. It's going to be tough for him to do the same thing again because Chase Elliott obviously is going to be the favorite, but AJ can get the job done. I mean, I was really impressed with him last year when he won in that rain-soaking, muddy of a race in the Xfinity Series at Charlotte. So if anyone can get the job done, and with the weather looking not that great this weekend, although I'm gonna say it's gonna be dry. And you race fans, when you tune in, do not jinx the weather.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. You're gonna get some angry tweets from me. I'm gonna go with AJ Allmendinger for my garage pick.
I'm going to do something I haven't done in a long time. There's a guy called Kyle Larson. We use him as a race pick sometimes on this show, and I'm using him 1 out of the 2 times I have on the show. I made the rule, if you all know, you can only use Kyle Larson twice in these playoffs, and you can use him if he is your championship pick or he makes it to the championship. You can obviously use him there, no harm, no foul. But this is one of 2 uses for Kyle Larson because we know he's a good road course racer. I just don't think he will actually win the entire event. We'll see. So Kyle Larson is my garage pick. But now to the main event, Rob. We got to do our race winning picks. I have a feeling you might agree. Who do you have as your race winning pick and why?
I am going to go with William Clyde Elliott Jr., which is Chase Elliott, of course, for you people who do not know his full name. Why am I going to go with him? Because if you can be a Cup driver whose Xbox controller broke and hit the wall in turn 1 in 2018, but you still managed to win. And then in 2019, I'm sorry, that was 2019. Correct me if I'm going to correct myself there. 2019, folks. And then last year, the show up in race format, he comes back and wins that race. I say he goes for a 3-peat. And I'll tell you why, because they are in a precarious position with the playoff margin being so bad for them right now. They don't want to limp their way into the round of 8. And getting all the playoff points right now matters in the world when you know the Gibbs boys are heating up.
Ooh.
And you know those Team Penske drivers, you cannot count them out either. They're peaking at the right time. So I'm going to say Elliott, but a very careful Chase Elliott pick, just like that.
I will say I was nervous also choosing Chase Elliott as my race winning pick because I know when the cards are not in his favor, when the odds are not in his favor, he does tend to perform well in those situations when you least expect it. And sometimes he's also a driver that you expect the world from and maybe just falls quite short. And I don't mean that to be rude at all, but there's some trends in there, but it's pretty obvious of the 3 races that we have had at this track, Chase Elliott has won 2. So I think it's appropriate to choose Chase Elliott now. You mentioned the Joe Gibbs guys and the Penske guys. Joe Gibbs guys are getting hot right now. That team is doing really well. And obviously, I think Kyle Busch could be a threat. Denny Hamlin's a threat. Obviously, not William Byron. Sorry. Christopher Bell, is obviously a threat. And Martin Truex Jr., obviously a very good road course racer. So they're all threats there. Penske, Ryan Blaney won, I believe, the first race there and one of my favorite races of all time where Jimmy Johnson was trying to get into the playoffs, collided with Martin Truex Jr. This race plays in my head over and over. Again, Adam and I talked about this, I even think last week, because it's just one of our favorite moments in NASCAR history. So there's contenders here, but Chase Elliott, I think right now is the safe pick. And with my points position right now on above the yellow line, I got to go with the safe pick. So those are our race picks, but let's look at the rest of the team. Adam in the garage, he has Chase Elliott. Dom in the garage has Denny Hamlin. Zachary Bell has Alex Bowman in the garage. And then the race winning picks, we vary a little bit of variety here. We have Adam winning is AJ Allmendinger. Dom has winning Martin Truex Jr. And finally, Zachary Bell going with the Joe Gibbs guy, Christopher Bell winning this race. I think that would be an interesting win, actually. But those are all of our race picks. Let us know who you have in the comments below. Who do you have being cut from after this race? Let us know that as well. And with that, we are done here at Above the Yellow Line. Thank you all so much for listening to the show where we talk all about the NASCAR Cup Series. I want to thank Rob for being willing to come back on the show. I know you have it very early this morning tomorrow, so thank you so much for being willing to come on the show.
Oh, absolutely. It's always a pleasure to be here.
And just so the viewers know where else to find you and your work, where else can we find you? Where can we look you up?
Yeah, so besides the podiumfinish.net, I can be found on Twitter at Rob Tiongson, also on Instagram at Rob Tiongson. And then I am going to be hosting a radio show at St. Bonaventure FM. So later on this month, the Podium Finish Live will be back in the airways after a 7-year hiatus. So we're going to be a friend, of course, to the ATYL show. Not a competitor at all, but we're going to be really a fun show where, if you're in the Olean, New York area in the Bonaventure campus, you can tune in on FM. But if not, you can definitely tune in live on a stream. So it's going to be a 60-minute program where we're going to have some roundtable discussions, interviews, and also music that's been chosen by the host and our guests. Ooh. So I am looking forward to it, and I hope to see you all there, and I hope all of you loyal ATYL fans keep tuning in with Taylor's show. She's got a good show going on.
Well, thank you so much. Definitely will tune into the show. It sounds fun. Also, new music every week. That also sounds pretty cool as well. Make sure to check that out. Of course, Rob mentioned the Podium Finish. Check us out there as well. But to find more content from me and the rest of the Above the Yellow Line crew, make sure to follow me on Twitter for updates and some fan questions. And also follow the Above the Yellow Line Instagram page for the latest uploads and more ways to interact with you all there. And this is all linked in the description below. But before you do that, make sure to like and subscribe. Share this with your friends and family. Thank you all so much again for supporting Above the Yellow Line. And until next time, we'll see ya.